right, what's going on, everyone? Thanks again for joining us today. This is officially episode 6 of the Hustle State of Mind podcast. I'm your host, Zach. And again, thanks for joining us. This is a wild kind of series. We had a kind of a quick last-minute bailout on a guest. Not a bailout. They had to cancel it due to like a power outage, which is unfortunate. But we'll still get you on the show. But by the awesomeness of this guy right here sitting next to me, I literally just went in and said, hey, do you want to go in and talk on this podcast about your business? And with no hesitation, he said, sure, let's do it. So without further ado, my guest today, his name is Ethan Gurski. The name of his business is Michigan Elite Exteriors, and he owns a home building company here in Berkeley where they do all sorts of projects and work on houses and repairs, stuff like that. And he'll get into all that and explain to you all about it. I also had the pleasure of kind of being neighbors with this guy as well in my office. So this is cool. So I'm going to be able to learn a lot more about his business while he explains it too, and kind of how he got into everything. And again, he had probably 10 minutes to prepare for this.
Yeah.
So here we go. Episode 6, Hustle State of Mind with Ethan Gurski. So thanks, Ethan. Thanks for coming to the show, man. Thank you for the very late ask on. You were for the record.
Thanks for making the long walk to come and get me.
Right? Yeah, for sure, man. And for the record, though, you were on the list of people to ask. I just didn't want you to. I've known you for a month now.
Yeah.
I didn't want to just bust in like the first week I met you and be like, hey, you want to be on the podcast?
Yeah.
So we had a couple dates first.
That would have been all right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, cool, man. I appreciate it. So you own Michigan Elite Exteriors. Before we get into all of that stuff, though, let's talk a little bit about just kind of to get to know you a little bit, so that it's not just all around your business and stuff like that, so people kind of understand you. Part of the reason for the podcast is to interview entrepreneurs to understand their mindset, their goals, and just the daily stuff that they go through, so people can gain an insight on a business owner who owns a home construction business, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So a little bit about you. Where are you from? Where'd you grow up? All that stuff.
I grew up in Livonia, Michigan.
There you go.
Grew up in Livonia, Michigan. Went to how much detail you want here?
We want social security number, date of birth, and home address.
Went to Livonia Franklin High School. I did a couple of years at Schoolcraft College, a couple of years at Oakland Community College, so no real formal university training.
Okay.
Figured out, school was not really for me, and actually started jumping right into sales, which is, if I know you got some questions geared towards that, but that's eventually what ended up leading me into building and the field that I'm in now. Okay,
cool. Yeah. All right, cool. All right, so we'll definitely get into that, because that's the biggest part, and that's kind of what I focus my business around myself is selling. I love selling. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm excited to hear more about like how you sell and stuff like that. Very cool. What was did you have any like weird fun jobs growing up before this, like when you were in high school or anything that was just like really like cool?
I was always I guess always a hard worker, right? So I remember being 12 years old, and I had a pretty good lawn route right on my street, and then I carried that, so I started, when I was 15, working at an ice rink. The very next year I started working at Outback Steakhouse, and I worked both those jobs at the same time, all while playing AAA hockey growing up. So, and then I remember, when I was 17, I still had both those jobs. And then in the summer, additionally, on top of doing all my hockey training, I did hardwood floors.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which actually started my, my love for building and stuff
right.
too. So I always like to work with my hands doing that stuff. So I was working, I was in between junior and senior year, and I was preparing for hockey and also working 3 jobs, so that's always kind of been my like hustle mentality.
Yeah, for sure. So you were you a waiter at
No, I actually I started bussing tables, and then I was a dishwasher, and then I worked my way up to line cook and stuff. So
Okay. I have I have some really high praise for Outback Steakhouse.
yeah,
I don't know what it is. You might be like, no, you're wrong, but like the quality of steak Outback can produce is actually pretty surprisingly really good.
It's solid, and like I told you, my wife and I were on we're doing this like paleo diet.
Yeah.
So it's like no grains, no dairy, and we'll still order from Outback. You can because we'll just order steak and like their seasonal asparagus or whatever, steamed veggies or
Right,
whatever,
a raw blooming onion.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Very cool.
But, yeah.
So okay, so you were working at a hockey rink. You were working at Outback while doing hockey. So you were kind of used to like a very massive workdown already.
Yeah, from a young age.
At a young age.
Yeah,
That's
I didn't grow up with a lot of money, but I played AAA hockey, right?
right.
Something my dad recognized, like I had talent, and he was like he wanted me to be in that environment, so like he put everything we had into that, and I had to pay for equipment and stuff like that,
Yeah.
So
you kind of learned a lot about responsibility, like you pretty much your whole life.
exactly.
It sounds like, which is it's kind of hit or miss, right? You probably have friends that were
especially these days,
kind of spoon-fed their whole life or something like that. They haven't really worked for anything, and then everything just kind of fell on their lap. Where I'm sure even when you start talking about your business too, that didn't fall in your lap.
No.
You've worked for it and earned it. So that's cool, man, because it's interesting to hear about like anybody that's an entrepreneur too, like what they did before they started working and owning their own business.
Yeah.
Because it kind of says a lot about who they are. Like, I don't know, I've never even talked about this, but like when I was a kid growing up, ever since I was 14, I started caddying.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started, I became the manager at a Dairy Queen. I became the manager at a coffee shop that was local. It was actually owned by Herman Moore, which was sweet.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he was my boss. And then cookie shop, stuff like that. So like those management roles today, I always look back and think like that had something to do with kind of where I'm at now and the type of work ethic that I have now.
Yeah.
So I feel like you could probably agree with the same, given, especially being in sports and working at the same time, that teaches you a lot.
Oh yeah.
Cool.
You gotta be able to manage your time, aside, you're going to school at the same time, but you have responsibilities to like your team, and then you also got to manage work at the same time. So, you learn to balance.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's massive too. Especially with homework.
Right.
And all that. Very cool, man. So right now, we'll get into it. Let's hear about your business.
Yeah.
So you own, the name of your company is Michigan Elite Exteriors. Well, let's start with the origin story.
Mm-hmm.
and kind of learn a little bit about let's hear it all, man.
Well, really started out of COVID, so I was doing, before this I was doing sales for another so before this, sorry.
You're good. Don't be afraid of it. It's all right.
Yeah, no. So it's just like awkward.
I know. It is.
So before this, I was actually doing sales for another construction company. I've done sales for several construction companies before this. I mean, you want me to go back?
Yeah, man. Let's hear it all. Yeah.
Yeah. So I, like I said, sales is kind of what led me into building. So I started. So after high school, I ended up working in a T-Mobile. Then I saw an opportunity. Verizon was getting the iPhone. I'm like, dude, I'm going to Verizon. I'm going to make way more money. And so I moved over to Verizon and, sold a whole bunch of iPhones. And then I started realizing, I wanted to move into business sales. So I kind of transitioned from there and moved into, like I still worked at the store, but I started selling only to businesses. And they made me like the business, what did they call it? Just I was like the business rep out of the stores for like
account manager.
Yeah, for a bunch of different stores. And then I had an opportunity through a friend to go and sell payroll and human resources for ADP. So then I jumped over there. I was actually pretty interesting. I was like the only one that worked there without a degree.
Wow.
But I interviewed well, and I have that sales mentality.
Right. Yeah.
So I was there for a little over a year, and I ended up being recruited by Paychex, another payroll and resource company, and they actually opened up. So I had a huge territory. So like right over here, I was working a fairly small territory for ADP, and they offered me. I mean, it was pretty much half the state at Paychex, so and it ended up being like more opportunity, more money. Well, at the same time, I had a client that I brought on at ADP that I, then brought over to Paychex actually, who was a builder, and he was like, well, why are you doing this stuff? Why don't you come and work for me? And I'm like, all right, well, what's it pay? Give me some details, all that. And so I ended up making the jump to that. And I loved it. It was door-to-door sales, and we were working in like storm zones, so like a hailstorm would come through, different areas, and we'd be knocking on doors and selling our services and, walking people through the insurance process. Eventually got to the point where I was basically running that company. But I wasn't to the point where I knew enough so I knew a lot about roofing, gutters, siding, didn't know enough about, doing bathrooms, kitchens, building houses, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And that homeowner or that business owner, turns out wasn't doing the proper things,
Right. You were only doing what he taught you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, not only that, I mean, he ended up owing a lot of people money, and
oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah. So I decided I needed to get away from that, and went and worked for another builder, and ended up running his sales team, building a team, essentially project managing everything. But instead of just doing exteriors and roofs and all that, we were doing remodels and building houses and stuff like that. So I got to learn that part of the business. And then came COVID, right? And everything kind of slowed down. People didn't want you in their house. A lot of work stopped.
Yeah.
And so I started, we had a lot of time off, obviously with the lockdown and everything, and I kind of just started thinking about how I can reinvent myself and how I can, grow from there. And so while I was, during COVID, I actually started, studying for my builder's test, doing all that. And then, I started up Michigan Elite Exteriors, and then I became licensed, and, it's been, history since. We've been just growing like crazy. So, not growing employee-wise, that's kind of the next step. Well, I know you have some questions about that. But yeah, that's kind of the origins, right? So that's how we started. It's kind of born out of COVID, and I come from a sales background, and I kind of learned about the building process along the way. So
you were groomed to literally like hit the gas pedal on a business, essentially, with just like your background. One question that I have that's really interesting is, do you think if COVID didn't happen, you would have started your business?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was already kind of leaning that way, but COVID's kind of what gave me that push.
Right, it gave you a break.
Yeah,
gave you a break. Like, nobody wants you in their house.
Gave me an opportunity to slow down and really think about it and make sure I was doing things right and hit the ground running, and set up and ready to go.
Right.
So
sounds like you sharpened all your tools when everybody else was kind of just getting a little complacent.
Yep.
I was literally just talking about that in another interview where I think COVID created like a lot of complacency with people to where they just got very, very settled into where they were at and what they were doing. And there's and that's okay. And there's nothing wrong with that for sure. But there's other people like yourself, like me, and other entrepreneurs who find kind of a great way to take advantage of that time right there.
Well, so I feel like maybe before COVID I was complacent, and then COVID made me like really sit and realize that, and then I mean, once I feel like it happens to most business owners, like once you decide to like kind of jump in, you get ultra motivated, right? And you start getting excited to like build something,
Yeah.
which is, basically what I did.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we absolutely. That's very cool. Man, I got something funny to say, but I'm not going to say it. No, I've had.
Say it. We can always edit it out.
I've had many of those. I've had many of those nights. It's I mean, in the best way, it's like, man, when you just like if you're kind of like late at night. This is a great way to put it. If you're late at night, if you're just drinking with your buddies,
yeah,
and you guys are drinking and brainstorming about business and stuff like that, just coming up with some great ideas.
Right.
That's
are they great ideas when you're drinking?
Right, right. But like, they feel so good every time, man. They feel like you're about to solve like every crime in the world or every problem that ever existed.
Exactly.
For sure. So, okay, cool. So you've been in business, it sounds like ever since like 2020?
So officially, 2020, and then I was licensed in early 2021.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So, as far as business growth, how would you say your business has grown in the last 4 years?
Honestly, it's been kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Because it was the right time to start a business, it turns out, especially in building. So nobody really did anything in 2020, and then everyone went crazy in 2021.
Yeah.
And things kind of exploded. And we did. I think our first year we did 1.6 million. And then it's grown, ever since then. Like last year we did 3.2 million,
Wow.
And it's just, and we're already, for whatever reason this year is, I think the reason might be, the interest rates. So a lot of people aren't moving. This year's been like addition crazy. We're doing a ton of additions.
Right.
Which we've talked about before. But yeah, it's just, it's been good. It's been, it's to the point where I definitely need to get some help in here and start to scale and, grow that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So 1.2 million and 3.2 million. To me, I'm like, oh, that's a lot of money. But even more what I see in that is that's a lot of people who trust you.
Right.
Which is more important than money when you're running a business, is having that trust and customer loyalty to kind of explain like word of mouth about like your business and how good of the work you do.
Yeah, which is, and you and I had talked about that just, before we hopped on here, how I'm terrible with social media, right? And so like when I first started, the business, I would kind of do the social media thing where I'm posting stuff more because I would, I'd do a little bit of Facebook advertising. And ever since, I haven't been posting just because I've been so busy, but also, my word of mouth and my schedule is just crazy, so I'm almost like, do I want to advertise right now or post, because I'm right. Like, I'm scheduling into the spring of next year.
You're afraid to make more money or what? Huh?
No, it's not that. I don't want to disappoint people,
Yeah,
I'm like, yeah, I can get you in April of next year.
Right.
So, and it really just depends on like what it is, right? So like I say April of next year, but that's for like our larger projects, our additions, our new builds, stuff like that. Roofs, we're only 3-4 weeks out, so like smaller projects, we sprinkle them in.
It's department based essentially.
Exactly.
Right? Like you can have plumbing, electricians, roofers, all that type of stuff. It's just, like the home additions and stuff like that. That's the big one for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Yeah, I can definitely see. It's so funny. Like for me personally, whenever I needed work done for my house, man, this is like, I don't know, like, again, I'm so ignorant to the building world and the construction world, where if I call somebody, I'm like, hey, I want a couple of outlets installed. What time tomorrow works for you? Can you come on? The guy's like, dude, I can't come out for like a couple weeks, man. I'm like really behind and booked right now. And I'm like, what? But you got to consider a lot of projects too. We live in Michigan, so weather plays a big factor in your schedules too, and it can set you back, or it can, you got a string of good days.
Right. So like, like this year, so like when I say like for additions and new builds, like we're not tearing someone's house open in December,
Right.
So like, beyond November, like we start scheduling those in, March, April next year.
Yeah.
So it's just the way things work.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're kind of brushing
our we'll do bathrooms, kitchens. I try to schedule our interior jobs in those winter months.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you're kind of brushing on it already, but like another really big question that I ask for everyone is like, what with your business in particular, what what kind of like what's your biggest challenge? Like, what is the biggest challenge you face the most?
I mean, right now I have some really good crews that have worked for me. Like I said, I've worked for other builders in the past, and I've actually carried those crews all the way through. So like all my crews, like, yeah, I've only been in business now for 4 years, 4 years. And a lot of my crews have been with me for 8 years.
Okay.
Plus, that being said, like, so my crews, like, they are seeing a lot of turnover right now. It just seems industry wide. We've had some supply chain issues. So dealing with those has been a big challenge. Another challenge would be just, I like to say I stay organized as best I can. I guess you can ask my clients on that, but, getting things scheduled and making sure I have all the puzzle pieces in place,
Yeah, for sure. You're always, you're always busy.
Yeah. You see it in the office,
yeah, I get to witness it firsthand.
For me, I'll actually put priority on like making sure the jobs are right,
Yeah.
Like, so make sure everything's in place. And then where I tend to fall off is my paperwork portion of it, right?
Yeah.
So like invoicing and, I do a lot of insurance restoration too. So I got to send pictures and invoices to the insurance company. And then, even getting proposals out, like I can struggle with that portion of it sometimes, just because I'm trying to make sure, like, the jobs I do have currently are going smoothly. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
I feel you on that. Yeah, no, it's where you don't want to. It's a fine balance of quality and quantity.
Yep.
So I hear you. Very cool. Yeah. The turnover with labor is crazy these days too.
Yep.
Where, especially I think I have a really good friend who owns a moving company, and the average duration of someone who wants to move or is new to the job, they've never done it before.
Yeah.
Is like, man, there's a higher chance you won't see them on day 2 than you will on day 1.
Yeah. Now imagine roofing, right?
No. So I was gonna bring that up.
Yeah.
Is like for me, like I've mowed lawns, and I used to work for like a property like restoration company when I was in college, where like we would go take care of all the houses that were boarded. Like, we'd board up houses in Detroit that were all foreclosed on after the housing crash, and take care of those properties.
Yeah.
But before all that, it was my senior year in high school. I got a job for college painters. You ever heard of them?
Oh yeah, I've heard them.
And so there's like, the guy's like, yeah, they're selling, and then there's a labor part, and you're gonna kind of do both. And I'm like, all right, sweet. And we go. The first day is it's this like nice neighborhood in Rochester, and it was in my friend's neighborhood. I go up there. The guy's like, all right, yeah, you're just going to start painting, kind of just doing the trim right here, like all the way up top. I looked all the way up, and I'm like, holy smokes. I'm like, okay. I'm like, no problem.
Yeah.
I get up there, man, there's like beehives up there and everything. I'm like, all right, man, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
I left on lunch and went to my friend's house who lived like right down the road, and I was like, let's just get out of here. Like, I don't want those guys seeing me. I don't care. They can keep their money, all that stuff. So very cool though. Yeah, it's definitely the labor of any type of job that you're new to is like, holy smokes, okay, maybe it's not for me.
To be honest, like, you can make really good money. Like my tradesmen, they do really well,
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't have to go to school. Like, if you're willing to work hard, you can make really good money,
It's the one long-lasting profession that will never die.
Exactly.
Like any type of trade.
My father-in-law, he was a teacher, and he's like, he actually pushes trade schools big time, because, or, just go be an apprentice for, a framer, like you can make a very good living,
Yeah.
And then eventually, because you're not always going to want to do that labor. It's hard on the body, right? So like eventually you get to the point where like you're running a crew and you have good guys underneath you, and then you're working for builders, or you go get your own builder's license, and you got, you're able to project manage and sell and, organize all your own
Literally
jobs.
what you did.
Exactly.
Yeah, you learn to lead.
Yep.
Very cool. Very cool. So we'll jump in a little bit more about just like motivational stuff. Like as far as like what what's the one thing? Is there anything that motivates you? Do you have like a motivational quote, or do you have like any type of motivating factors in your life that like make you like grind hard? Like what lights the fire in the dog?
To be honest, probably my family.
Yeah, cool. No, I hear you.
Yeah, I got 2 little boys, 3 and almost 2. So we talked about that. We're planning, that second birthday party.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're really, I guess, what motivates me. Like we said, like I grew up, I didn't have much. Like we got by. But I'm motivated. I want to give my kids more than what I had, right?
Right, absolutely.
So, I mean, who doesn't?
I feel that.
Yep. And it's basically why I work as hard as I do.
Right.
So, and I do have to sacrifice some things away from them, at times, but in the end,
it's part of the game.
Yeah.
And it's also, I kind of look at it as like later on in their life, they'll see that one, you were a good dad, but 2, that it's like you were kind of setting an example for them to work hard too.
Exactly.
Because I think that you don't learn work ethic anywhere outside your own home at first.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't want anything to be handed to them either.
Right.
So, I already make them work for it. So.
I mean, I was just gonna ask you because do you?
Oh, it's funny. I'll bring Cole. So that's my 3-year-old. Like the other day, I brought him to this garage we're building. And I was like, hey, I need you to go and grab up all the debris and just put it in a little pile here. Actually, he loved it, Like,
oh, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's so good for kids, too. And, I mean, they love doing that kind of stuff. So, and he's like, he's a little project foreman. So
okay. I was going to ask you a little similar, like, because like you said, I came from a very similar background. Right? I like literally didn't have much when I was growing up.
Yeah.
I had a really good mom.
Yeah.
But that was really it growing up. So, like, with that, like, man, I'm always like, I never got what I wanted all the time and stuff like that. Sometimes it's hard for me not to give my kids everything they want right away. Yeah. Because I didn't have it. So I'm like, man, like, you want a new bike? Sure. Boom. There's a bike there in 15 minutes sometimes. Like,
trust me, I understand that.
Like, stuff like that where I'm like, okay, I will make sure that you never felt the way I kind of felt. Not that it was a bad thing, me feeling that way growing up, because I learned so much from my mom. But, everything wasn't just right there in front of me, but she did try her hardest to do that. But it's a lot easier knowing from all my hard work that I do and from what I learned from her that I can snap my finger and make that bike arrive or that new toy or whatever, whatever it is, it's cool. Okay. So outside of like the motivation stuff, what's your next big step for your business? Like how are you going to generate more revenue when it's time, right? I know it's kind of a matter of time, like you said.
So right now it's, getting to that point where I'm scaling. So like, I'm kind of at that, like I either stay the same or, I scale right now. Mm-hmm. And so like, I'm looking into hiring like project manager, office manager, that way I can then take those next steps to grow. And then once I get those in place, I'm able to maybe hire a sales manager and grow and hire a sales team from there, get them trained up. It's just, that'll probably be a winter project, to be honest with you. Yeah. So like right now I'm in the thick of it,
the trenches.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I need our slower season, even though we do take on quite a few kitchen and bath projects in the winter, the winter is still like I don't have a roof going on every single day on top of like an addition project and stuff like that, right? So like our winter's a slower time. That's when I'm going to start getting that all figured out and start to scale from there. Yeah. And then additionally, like I've told you, because that is complacency. I don't like complacency. Yeah. So I'm always looking for other avenues, and like that's why I started Michigan Elite Properties as well, Okay. So that's another business I started. And so we're going to be looking at opening up like short-term rentals and getting that going as well. Mm-hmm. So
that's exciting.
Yeah.
That's exciting. Especially it's just cool to own more stuff too, right? Like, yeah, and you got options. If you buy some cool places and you're like, oh man, I have this place here, or this place down south, wherever it is, or up north, there's a lot of good places that you can travel around.
Exactly.
And you can kind of chase the weather that way too. You're like, oh, well, it's snowing up north. But, we go 8 hours down south. It's really nice and the weather's beautiful.
As long as it's not rented, right? So,
yeah. Well, just kick them out.
Yeah, right.
Very cool. Very cool. So a little bit more about like just like your personal life of being a business owner, but like what are some things that you do to like kind of like wind down and relax to take your mind off your business for a minute? Like obviously I know like I'm sure like spending time with your family is one, right? But like what do you do like to like
golf?
Golf. Golf is really important though. It's huge, and I think it helps a lot of people like zone out.
Oh yeah. Unfortunately, I haven't made it out quite as much as I wanted to.
I hear you're quite the golfer.
No. You saw that the other day, didn't you?
I don't believe it, though.
Yeah.
So golf. Do you do anything like, do you work out, you meditate, you journal, you do anything like that?
I run sometimes.
Okay.
I need to work out.
Okay.
But, I mean, as we said, I haven't even gone and picked up the key for the membership I've been paying for. So
I'll make it there one of these days.
Yeah,
I hear you. Well, I mean, it's not a bad thing right now. I mean, like it definitely means that something else is going on that's keeping you busy too at the same time. But do you ever like? I mean, so I guess with that being said, do you ever get like a sense of feeling burnt out?
Yes.
And being like, holy smokes! Like, do you ever feel like quitting?
No, I don't. I have quit in me. I don't think.
Okay.
Maybe it's like an athlete thing. Or, that is one thing about sports. Growing up in sports, right? Like you kind of get instilled those values. So
absolutely.
No, I don't feel like quitting. Do I get burnt out? Yeah, but like that's when you schedule a vacation.
Right. That was my next question is what do you do when you start really feeling burnt out? Because if you feel so burnt out for so long, like it's gonna get up here.
Oh yeah. So like my wife and I, like we like that's our promise to each other. We take like one, just her and I vacation each year, and then one family vacation. So we went to Aruba in April, and then where are we going here? Oh, actually, we have 2 family vacations coming up. We have Lake Tahoe, Yosemite at the end of August, and then
love that.
Yep, and then in November we'll be going to Broken Bow. My sister lives in Oklahoma.
Okay.
Broken Bow is like a big Airbnb spot in Oklahoma.
Okay, I've never heard of
Broken Bow. If you look it up, the Airbnbs are like phenomenal there. So
really?
I'm actually that's one of the places I'm looking in it. I'm looking like Outer Banks, Broken Bow, Scottsdale, and like the Vail Breckenridge area in Colorado.
Okay.
So any of those places, I'm looking for a place, to potentially Airbnb.
All those places. I mean, again, I've never heard of Broken Bow, but every other place sounds like a great place to get away, no matter what, and do something outdoors and recreational.
Oh yeah, and just good investment opportunity. I'm always thinking about the next investment.
Right. Yeah, so you're making money too. Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, that's what we do as entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah. So, absolutely. That's kind of where I'm stuck in right now. Is like, what am I going to do next with everything else? Because everything runs itself. What's my next avenue going to be? All that. So I literally talk to you about that every day.
Yeah. Like, you don't want to get stuck, right?
Right. No, so, and that's like one of my biggest fears is getting stuck.
You got a baby on the way though.
I know. Yeah. Yeah.
That's your next avenue.
9 days is my next project.
Yeah,
exactly.
Little girl.
But yeah, absolutely. Well, cool, man. Cool. That's that's pretty much it. Well, I got one last question for you actually too. So if there's somebody, I know what you're gonna say. Rephrase it already. If there is somebody, right, who's at the level that you were at, where they're like, okay, I think I got a good grip on this. What advice would you give to anybody who's on the cusp of going and starting a venture similar to your own that would really help them out?
So if someone wants to get into building,
if someone wants to get into building or just be an entrepreneur.
I mean, to be honest, so like I talked to my neighbor about this too. I think it would be best to either start in sales with another building company or start as like a project manager. The problem is like if you're going to be on your own, kind of like I am right now, and so I'm selling, project managing, I'm the office, all that. I'm
A lot of hats.
wearing all those hats, exactly. But the most important one is that sales, right? You got to be able to sell. So like if you're not a salesperson, like you're only the project manager type, the organizational type, like you need to be able to find someone that can sell for you, because a business isn't a business without sales,
Yeah,
So
I hear that.
I mean, that's really your, either find some sales training, find someone that can sell, because without sales, you're no business. So that would be my advice.
Absolutely. That's awesome advice. That's really cool advice.
So, and then, then you got to learn the other part of it too. And, there's a lot of guys that can do one or the other, but not both.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, you got to either find that help quickly or, kind of learn it quickly.
Yeah. All right.
So, yeah.
Right on. Very cool. Very cool. Well, thanks, man. I really, again, I appreciate you coming on. Go ahead, tell everyone how they can get in contact with you about your business, if they need any type of work done, additions, anything like that. How does the general public get a hold of you?
Yeah, so we actually specialize in roofing, siding, gutters, and windows. And then we do a lot of additions and garages as well. And I can be reached at 248-797-5355. You can check us out on Facebook. You can also look us up on our website at mieliteexteriors.com.
Cool. Do you have an office anywhere?
I do have an office on Coolidge Road in Berkeley.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yep.
Nice area here.
Yep.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, again, man, I know I've said a lot, but thank you. This was so impromptu with Ethan. Ethan, man, just jumped in. Dude, you killed it. You absolutely killed it. Seriously.
Thanks.
You were an awesome guest. Look at Walter. Look at how happy Walter is over there. He's saying good guest over here. So, all right. Awesome, man. Well, that's it. That is episode 6 for Hustle State of Mind podcast. Again, thanks to Ethan. Thanks to Walter, the producer of this show. And if I don't see you guys soon, I will be back. I'm having a daughter in 9 days. So hopefully that's it. All right. Bye-bye.